Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is SyrupCast 2.0, maybe Revenge of the SyrupCast. I haven't fully nailed down what we should call us coming back, but we are back, or at least we're going to try to be back as much as we can. Mobile Syrup's been through some changes this year, but a big bunch of us are left. If you're watching the video, you can see all of our smiling faces. Dean's praying to keep the podcast alive, and we're gonna keep it going. We're
Praying to
I
the
guess
syrup gods.
yeah. I mean, I guess. So it's me, Brad Bennett. I don't know if you guys remember from before. Brad Shankar's here, John Lamont is here, Dean Daly is here, and that might look like a recognizable cast of characters, but I think the one thing that maybe we should clarify to anyone that's been wondering what went on this last year and why we were on hiatus for so long is there's only four of us now. This is the remaining crew. The last, what do we call ourselves? What was the name we
The
were
core
making?
four.
The
The
core
core
four.
four.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Mobile Syrup, we used to work for a company called Blue Ant Media in, when did we get bought? 2020, 2021?
It was
Anyone?
2020.
October 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we got bought in 2020. We worked for Blue Ant Media for 4 years-ish.
Yeah, about 4 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then they sold us to Zoomer Media, which if you live in maybe Toronto or Vancouver, we could say that that's the company that owns BlogTO or Daily Hive, and Curiosity, which I think is a Calgary brand or an Alberta brand. So you might recognize some of those, but we work there now. We've been at Zoomer since the summer, since June. I think you said late June, late June.
June 25th was the official date.
Yeah, so
Day
we've been
before
there
my
for a
birthday.
while. We've been there for a while now. It's just the four of us left, I guess. We're, trying to go back on the upswing. We'll see what we can do in the coming year to bring Mobile Syrup back to its powerhouse that it's always been known for. Not that we still aren't, because, the four of us are pretty powerful, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else have anything they think we should share to the audience about what's been going on? I guess we should mention John is now our editor-in-chief. So that's
Yeah,
pretty interesting.
I've taken over that role since a little bit before the acquisition. And yeah, we're a smaller team than before, but we're still quite nimble, and we've been killing it through the fall with just the four of us. So yeah, but we're really hoping to get the podcast back up and running. It was something that we really loved doing before, and we just haven't had the bandwidth to do it for a little bit. But yeah, we're really going to get this back up and going for the next little bit.
Yeah, and I guess we should say Brad, not me, Brad Shankar is going to the Game Awards, and this is the first year that Mobile Syrup, because of Brad's work on all the gaming coverage, has been invited to be a judge. And so Brad's going to go, and in 2 weeks, I believe, I don't know the exact date, I should
A
have
week
written that down,
today.
but a week today. No, but I think it's
Yeah,
a week
as the
today,
time
but
we're recording.
yeah. But I think we'll do the next podcast episode coming out of the Game Awards about your experience being a judge and what that was like, what it was like to go. I mean, I know you've been before, but I think the next episode following this one will be focused on more video game stuff, Game Awards, and I guess maybe we'll talk about maybe what you think are some of the best games of the year. Although I guess we're kind of doing that today. Although today is maybe more favorites rather than best, which I know there's sometimes a distinction. And I guess leading into that, today's episode is just about our favorite things of the year. We thought, coming back, our first episode back in 6 months, maybe more. I don't know how long it's been. We just wanted to talk about what tech we really enjoyed this year. We wanted to keep it positive. For us, it's been kind of a roller coaster. So we just wanted to come in. We wanted to chat, share what it's like when we all kind of get together and we just hang out and we just talk about the tech that we love. So without further ado, I guess maybe Dean, do you want to start it off with one of your favorite things? And then we'll bounce around, but we'll start with one.
Yeah, sure. I'll do the Meta Quest 3S. I just started using it,
A new one.
but I really like. Yeah, it's the new one. It's like the more affordable one. It's like $3.99 Canadian. I'm pretty sure, something along those lines. Yeah, it's really cool. I've never really got into VR. I mean, I'm barely even using it for VR purposes. I haven't started playing the new Arkham game yet, even though it comes free with it. But I've just been using it to, watch TV and stuff like that. Play other games that are not VR. Like I played some Liza P on it recently, because I haven't finished that game, and that game's getting a DLC early next year. So I was like, I should probably finish this game.
When you're playing
Um,
Liza P in there, do you have to like stream it through like a PlayStation app or like Game Pass app, or is it like running natively in the Quest?
it's using the Game Pass app. It's using
Cool.
Cloud Game Pass like on the browser, but it has its own like little like setup for specifically for Game Pass. So you can when you open up the library for the Meta Quest 3 mess, you'll see like Game Pass on it. So then I just clicked it, logged in, and started playing games through that. They have the same thing for like Disney Plus, but I've been watching Netflix, watching this show called Pantheon, and that show is like very like high tech and like about people who like upload their minds to the internet.
No, kind of like a meta
And like
experience in the Quest, or a double
yeah, it's
meta.
like a
Yeah.
exactly yeah, like because like the main character is often using a VR headset, and then I'm using a VR headset, and it's just like whoa, trippy.
So
Um,
what's it like watching content or playing games in there? Like, what makes it better than a
well,
TV?
you can kind of like have it set to as far as you want it. Like you can have it so that your screen is like right in front of you, or you can have it like so your screen's a little further back. You can make it look like your screen's really big. Oops, I tapped that. I often have it so that it's curved around me, which doesn't work for games, because
Oh,
when you have
really?
it curved, because when you have it in its cinematic mode, like you can't like my control won't work with it. Like it has like it just stops working. So, but for games, like I still have it like pretty close up to my face, and it looks like it's like a I don't know like 60, 70 inch TV. It looks really cool. X Real just basically came out with a product today that has a similar vibe where it's just like a screen. So I might try to get those glasses as well. But yeah, I'm really liking the MetaQuest ones. It's super easy to use. You can use it without the two little controllers or your hands even, which is also pretty nice. Um, yeah, and it's quick. It does what I need it to do. So far, I'm going to try out some Arkham Shadows. I think that's just what it's called
Shadows,
in
I
you.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm gonna
sounds
try
intrigued.
that
right.
out.
That is the one
Yeah, yeah.
thing that like really upsets me. Well, there's a few things, but one of the main things that really upsets me with the Vision Pro is just like no crazy VR games. Like I remember
Mm.
playing, I have like a wired HB, like a really old VR headset that you have to like connect up to a computer, and been playing like Half-Life Alyx and Super Hot and Flight Simulator on that was like amazing. It was insane. I think the first time I ever played Flight Simulator, I'm like flying in the VR and like the sun is like behind me and I see the shadow like move off the dash and I swear I could feel
Mm.
like the heat on the back of my neck. It was mind blowing. And I just really
I
wish like the Vision Pro would do some like cool VR stuff like that.
So because I went to your house and played Super Hot, I was like, oh, I should just play Super Hot. And I didn't realize that Super Hot's like still like $40. I feel like it came out like a billion years ago. Um,
I guess they jack it up on VR because it is like one of the like
yeah.
flagship VR experiences. Like it's just like easy to play. Anyone can play it. It's like a fun party thing. People get like I don't know. It's also super fun. Like there's no denying that.
Also really enjoy that I wear glasses. I wear Meta glasses with prescriptions in them. So it's nice that I can still wear my glasses, and then have
The
um,
headset on. Do you find that that
the
gets
headset on.
uncomfortable? Like without the would it be more comfortable without the glasses, or you think it's like pretty even?
I go back and forth just
Yeah.
to see the difference. It feels the same, really. I don't notice a difference. I notice that I feel like my eyes start to strain a little bit. Maybe I don't have this the perfect settings, like the perfect width. But it definitely strains a lot faster if I don't have my glasses on. And then when I do have my glasses on, I watched what 2 episodes of Pantheon straight before I needed to take it off, and they're 40 minutes each, so like, um, yeah, almost an hour and a half of just wearing this MetaQuest, and it was nice. Didn't feel too heavy. It gets a little hot if you touch the front of it, but like that part's not touching your face, so I only It's just
It's winter
it's just
time, you know. That's a plus right now.
Mhm.
yeah. But yeah,
Um,
it's good.
sorry, do you have, were you gonna say something else?
Nope.
I was gonna say, Brad, do you have a VR headset as well? Do you still use yours, or
Yeah, I
did
have
you have
the
one? Yeah.
base Quest 3.
Hmm.
I got it late last year. I reviewed it at the start of this year, which feels like so long ago.
Right. I remember the
Yeah, I
photos.
liked it. I just
Wait,
don't
I think back
use
off
it
the mic a
much.
little. Sorry.
I don't use it much. It's just really like it, and I think it's a really great device, especially compared to the PlayStation VR 2 that I had, that I do have still, which doesn't really have a lot of games or much to use it for, and it's also significantly more expensive all around. I think the Quest 3 is an undeniable great value. It's just there's so many other forms of entertainment, like games and movies and stuff that I want to do that, when I get home, kind of the last thing I want to do is put on a VR headset, especially if it's been a long day or I've gone to the gym or whatever. So, yeah, I haven't used it in a long time, but not because I don't like it. It's just a bit of an ordeal to use VR sometimes.
I kind of
I
fall
think
into
probably
the same boat with the Vision Pro. I like using it a lot when I'm traveling, when I'm like by myself and I can like watch movies on a plane or in a hotel room and use it for like an extra monitor while I'm working. But at home, it hasn't come out as often as I'd like.
I feel like I'm always on my phone. Like I tend to like always be looking at it. Grinder noises. But I feel like when I'm in that like virtual world, I'm not paying attention to my phone, and like an hour will go by, and I'm just like, oh, I haven't checked my messages, which feels a little nice, especially around now.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's undeniable how awesome it is to just like have this virtual theater screen like blown up in front of you. Like I even not to hedge one of my favorite things, but playing like Delta in the Vision Pro at like you said like a 100 inch screen is just like it doesn't even
Yeah.
matter because it's like pixelated Pokemon, but it just there's something about it that's so satisfying. Um,
I think the only difference between mine and I think there's probably a few, but mine the or the more affordable version, and Brad's is that mine is only 1080p versus
mm.
Brad's 4K, and mine has less storage as well, like 128 gigs.
And can you expand it? Can you
So
like jack an SD card or just hang a hard drive off that
I
bad
don't
boy or
I
no?
don't you can maybe do a hard drive. I don't think so.
It would honestly, and
Uh,
this is like kind of just like a cyberpunk design nerd inside of me, but it'd be really cool if you could just like put like USB sticks in the top and like have them coming out like little antennas. That would look cool.
That would be
Um,
cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try the X. This year, I want to do more mobile and more AI and XR stuff, just because I use the glasses and I had some pretty cool interviews with Qualcomm and their XR heads. If you guys want to go on Mobile Syrup to read those, yeah, they're there, or at least one of them is there.
I
Anyways,
think there's two.
there's
Yeah,
two.
they're
Yeah,
they're
okay,
both there.
okay, cool.
No, we've been secretly
But
deleting them behind your back, Dean. We're
I don't
Mobile
remember
Syrup does
what I
not stand
read.
for XR.
I don't remember what I wrote like yesterday. Um, so I've been trying to. I want to get more into that. I have a good relationship with Qualcomm and Intel and stuff, so it should work in my favor. And phones. There's only so many phones in a year, so yeah, I'm just trying to expand a little bit more.
Brad, well, you're hedging too
So
much.
yeah,
You're going into next year. Let's move on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll come
Sorry,
back to you
sorry.
for
Yeah,
your next
yeah,
favorite
yeah,
thing. Brad, do you want to
yeah.
take us down one of the games that you had on the list? Your thing was mostly, or I think you had some movies in your honorable mentions, but do you want to take us down your number one favorite thing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, most people here are going to talk about tech. Understandably, I'm much more on the gaming side, so yeah, I'm going to have to talk about games. So yeah, I'll talk about my favorite game of the year, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's no surprise. Anybody who knows me, I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game of all time. This game is kind of wild just to talk about because it's the second part of a trilogy of like 30 plus hour games. Presumably the third one's going to be the same length or if not longer, remaking
Likely.
a PS1 game, which was only about 30 hours itself. So it's a crazy ambitious, self-indulgent project in many ways for sure, but it's just I think especially with the last several months kind of reflecting on everything of the year, it was been really nice to kind of go back to something that's very distinctly from the 90s and from my childhood, and kind of the core message of that game because they're kind of leaning into the fact that in the original game, without spoilers for the new one of your main characters dies, and that's one of the most iconic scenes in gaming. So Aerith is her name, and so they're kind of leaning into that with the remake because going in, you know that she dies in the original game. Is she going to die in the new game? So without spoiling what happens with that, they do a really good job of kind of leaning into that, of the core message of the game kind of being like savoring the time that you have because you don't know what's going to happen, and kind of there's a kind of joyous celebration amid this like cyberpunk dystopian world of just kind of living in the moment. And it's kind of like a big hangout game in a lot of ways. Like there's just so many times that you're just chilling with the friends, going to like a theme park and being at the beach, and just kind of like it's just kind of got it's a lot of good vibes in that sense. And it's got my favorite combat system in any RPG, action RPG, where it kind of it's real time, but then it takes some of the like turn-based elements from the original and kind of melds them together, and it's really in depth and complex and strategic. It's got my favorite soundtrack in all of games. It's so many great remixes. I see Dean raising his hand.
I have 2 questions for you, but you can keep going. So I just want to raise that I have 2 questions for you.
No, go ahead.
All right. So the first question is the combat different than in the first part of the Final Fantasy
good question.
remake?
It's expanded from it. It's still fundamentally the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm not that it was bad or anything. I don't really remember it much. And second, you hanging out with your friends at different, like at a amusement park and whatever. I mean, that just sounds like Final Fantasy 15, where you're just hanging out with the boys all the time.
I mean, the difference is this game actually has really good writing.
And I think, like you were saying, Brad, too, it has that like nostalgia pull for so many people, which I think it can be. I wouldn't call it a cop out because you know me with like the Wii and Delta this year. I've been going down the nostalgia rabbit hole in my own way, but I think that really probably helps keeping. I'm sure the writing is fantastic, like you said, but I think the nostalgia probably really helps you, like you said, want to savor those moments more than like somebody who might be new to it. And it's just like, oh, like I want to get
it
in.
Helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps me for sure. But I mean, the original game, for context, had a notoriously spotty translation. Like they had one guy basically crunching to translate it for the English market. So it had a lot of typos and things like whole plot details were kind of murky because of the way things were translated. Like the way it was written, like you might think one character died when in reality they didn't actually. It was just a
weird
mistranslation. So even like removing the nostalgia element, like just this game, is so much better written, so much better acted. I mean, there was no voice acting in the original game, but that adds so much to it. And
I didn't even realize that the writing would be different. I thought it'd be the same.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a huge difference. That's why I feel like it warrants being in the conversation for best narrative, because they did add and expand and change so much. It's not like Silent Hill 2 remake, which was up for best narrative, which is literally the exact same story. Again, that felt like a cop-out nomination with the Game Awards. But for this game, the story is so significantly expanded and entire new storylines for characters and everything. So I know a lot of people who haven't played the original who have played this and remake and rebirth and really liked it. So I think both games, they suffer from like there's that 5% of it which is very insular and self-referential and kind of meta getting into the larger franchise, which will lose some people, and I've criticized it for that too, removing my own like fandom from it. But otherwise, I think like 95% of it is like really good for newcomers.
I was about to ask Brad, as someone who has not played any Final Fantasy games, would this be a good one to start with?
I think 15 is probably the best to start with.
My
cheeky smile.
My disdain for 15 aside, I mean, I think remake is the first one, and then rebirth, this is the second one. Remake would be the best one to start with. But they are a big commitment, admittedly, because they are like 30 to 40 hours each. Rebirth is a lot longer because it takes a more open world approach, so there is more stuff you can do if you want it. But if you just like beelined it would probably be about 30 or 40 hours as well.
So, and if I remember right, it's not nominated for best game of the year, or it is.
No, it is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Like, okay. I can't remember what's on the list or not.
I think
The
I know
6
the
games
answer.
for Game of the Year are Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor Refantasio, Balatro, Elden Ring DLC, controversially, Astrobot, and Black Myth Wukong.
Do you think did you vote? I mean, I know you voted for you saying you sent in the votes for like our whole team, but did you personally vote for Rebirth, or did you not do your personal ones?
I think as part of the jury, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about what we voted publicly. So just to be safe, I'll just abstain from
We
that. I
can
mean,
save that for
personally,
next one. Yeah.
yeah. I
No,
mean,
I
obviously,
didn't-
yeah. On a personal level, my favorite game is Rebirth. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
mean,
I didn't mean
to be
like
clear
as-
to. Yeah, to be clear to everyone listening, we voted as a jury, so it wasn't just me.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, like, I also then voted myself as a normal, like, just a regular person. Like, I went on the
Oh, like
board.
did
so
the
then-
online one? Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Are the online polls still open?
Yeah, they're open until the night before. Sorry, someone's calling in the background.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, they're open until the night before the awards, I believe. So don't quote me on that, but yeah, the Game Awards
there's
are
still
December
time.
12th, so I believe you have until December 11th at like 9 p.m. or something like that. But yeah, you still have several days at least.
It gives everybody a
and
chance
yeah,
to
just
put in their votes for the Canadian-made, although we don't know where and we don't really know by who, Balatro, which I've been like obsessed with this week. It took me a while to get it to click, but
Yeah.
now that it's clicked, I am like super in.
I finally started playing it this week as well, and I have had a hard time putting it down. It is very good.
That's super
See,
cool.
I find that conversation so funny because it didn't hook me at all. Like I played it for a few hours, I beat it once, and I felt that was it. I totally understand why people like it, but to me, it's kind of lacking in more
Personality?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
is-
it's one guy, and I don't expect it to have a story or anything, like because it is just one guy making it. But I don't know. To me, like for a roguelike to hook me, there needs to be some kind of narrative or something deeper to it, like Hades, for instance. And I don't know. I
That's a
just
good
Balatro
comparison,
didn't
yeah.
grab me. Yeah.
Hades was
Well,
really
Prince
a
of Persia
great
Rogue.
triple threat. Is Prince of Persia a roguelike?
Prince of Persia Rogue. There's a separate Prince
Oh,
of
yeah.
Persia
That's
game
not
that
the
came
new
out
one.
this year.
Yeah.
It came out after. It's the newest one, technically.
Wait, there was
Oh,
two
it's
Prince of
actually-
Persia
it's in
games this year?
Well, it's in early
Yeah.
access. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's the 30th anniversary or 35th, or I forget what milestone it is, but for Prince of Persia, they're celebrating a big anniversary, so I guess they just wanted to put out a few games.
Fair enough. We can all
Both
go
games
back
are
to the.
phenomenal. But
Was there a movie
Yeah.
with Jake Gyllenhaal? Am I misremembering that? Was Jake
There
Gyllenhaal
was
the Prince of Persia?
like 15
Yeah.
years ago. Yes.
Crazy. And was the really well regarded one? I think that studio got like a lot of laughs or something. But was that Canadian?
No, that was actually
No?
the Montpellier studio. I mean, like
so
a lot
French.
of Ubisoft games, a bunch of their worldwide studios contribute to it. So, like, I interviewed someone who's based in Quebec who contributed to the game. I think he was like one of the artists on the game. But yeah, the main studio was in Montpellier, France, and they're the team that did Rayman. So yeah, they didn't get laid off, thankfully, but they kind of dissolved that team and reassigned them to work on. I forget what the next game was that they're working on, but it's not Prince of Persia, sadly. Which is a shame, because The Lost Crown was amazing, and I would have had that up for Game of the Year over Balatro, so just saying.
Wow. All right. Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
agree. I mean, I haven't even tried Balatro, but I loved that game. It's so fun.
I've only
I
heard
went
good
back
things
to it
about
recently.
it. So.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I even put this down?
That's probably a good one for the headset, eh? The like side-scrolling aspect of it, not too intense.
Perhaps. I have it on Switch.
Okay, I guess that's probably good for it too. But yeah, I guess John, what do you got? What have you brought to the table for
I'm
us
up.
today?
All right. So I'm not gonna, for my number one, I'm not gonna name a specific device, but kind of a category of devices, and those are the new Copilot Plus PCs running Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chip.
No, I think
The
this
reason
is a
why I
good
want
one.
to, yeah, the reason why I want to highlight this one is I think for the first time in a really long time, we finally have some ARM-based Windows laptops that are competitive with other devices on the market. I think, the jury's maybe a little bit still out on whether they're better than, say, Apple's M4 chips and stuff like that. I think it really comes down to personal needs and stuff like that. But if you are a Windows user and you want a laptop that has better battery life than, something with an Intel or an AMD chip, I do think the new Snapdragon laptops are the best option right now in that regard.
And I think like
And there are
picking
quite a
it
few.
as a whole, I think what we really saw this year, and maybe you were going to get into this, but it's like it really shows like there's like a forward path for ARM on Windows now. With like the first ARM Surface Books, it really felt like that's a one and done. Is anyone ever going to follow that from like a third party manufacturer? But this year it really felt like no, ARM and Windows is like here to stay. Like we will get to a Snapdragon X Elite 4 someday, likely.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely feels like there's more staying power. It was interesting to go because I went to the event in Seattle when they announced these, and it was interesting to see one Microsoft doing their Surface laptops with it, and Microsoft has done ARM-based Surface laptops in the past, but they were always kind of an in addition to Intel-based ones. Whereas this year they put out some Intel-based ones that were like positioned as for business, and then the Qualcomm ones came, and these are like, okay, these are for everyone. These are for consumers. Like, these are not just for business. And so you have, Surface Laptop and Surface Pro, which is their 2-in-1 tablet. And then alongside that, they also had a bunch of manufacturers, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Samsung, probably some other ones that I'm forgetting, that were there at the event with their own versions of these laptops too. And there was a nice mix of options that came. Some manufacturers did a little bit more than others. Dell, if I remember correctly, I think they basically just took one of the chips and put it in their existing XPS 13 model and didn't really change much up. Whereas like HP like totally redid their entire laptop line. Like they totally simplified it. They took it down. They basically have like one brand for consumer and one brand for business. And there's some minor differences between the two, and like the business one comes with some extra like business focused features, but like they really like simplified their laptop lineup and totally changed it around with this focus on the new Qualcomm chips and AI as like a second part of that. The AI part is kind of, for me, whatever. Like I'm still not sold on AI, but yeah, at a base level, better battery life, surprisingly good performance from an ARM chip. Most of the Windows on ARM's laptops before this were not great, but these ones are, in my testing, very competitive with Intel and AMD, except for in certain niche workloads or things that don't support ARM hardware yet. And yeah, just I think for most consumers, if you want a laptop that's decently powerful and is going to last like a really long time in terms of battery life, these are the way to go.
Okay, I've got like a laundry list of questions here because
Okay.
I'm also into this PC stuff. Do you think we'll get to a point where like if you wanted to build a PC at home, you could use an ARM chip, like put it into your own motherboard, strap on a NVIDIA GPU, and like build a gaming PC on ARM? Or like how many generations would you like just shot in the dark theorize that you think that is a way?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think part of the benefit to ARM chips is that like all of the pieces are on one chip, right?
The GPU is built in.
Yeah. So that's part of like what helps with the efficiency as well as like the architecture and the instruction set and like all that stuff. But I think that's part of the efficiency. So I'm not sure if or when we'll see like a dedicated desktop CPU chip where you would have an external GPU. I'm sure it might
Fair
happen
enough.
at some point. I'm just not sure if or when that's on the roadmap.
I mean,
Because I do
personally, I'd be
think,
happier if it didn't. GPUs are like getting crazy expensive, and
yeah,
Apple has
absolutely.
proven on their side that you can make like really capable ARM gaming hardware. Although it gets like quite expensive, I guess, once you get like a MacBook or an iMac with a GPU like strapped in.
I
Yeah.
think
And
that's. Oh, sorry, John.
I was just going to say, I think ultimately, or like where things are right now, if you aren't concerned about, power consumption and heat, you're still going to get better performance out of like an Intel or AMD chip plus like an external GPU. So I think, the ARM chips really shine on laptops and like mobile environments where, You don't want it to be super hot, and you don't want it to use a ton of power.
Mm-hmm. What were you going to say, Dean?
I was just gonna say, I think Qualcomm's kind of like killing it. Not to
No, I
be
think it's a good
someone
point.
in their like pocket, just because I have a relationship with them. But they they have the new laptops that are doing really well. I was playing with the Snapdragon 8 Elite on the ROG Phone 9, and I'm super excited to try it out on the OnePlus 13 soon. But I mean, the ROG Phone 9 just slayed everything I tried to do. It slayed benchmarks. It slayed like Apple for the first time like that I've been in since I've been reviewing phones. I've never seen a benchmark beat Apple, and it like destroyed the not destroyed, but it really beat the 18 Pro, and
No, and
I
you're right.
have a
And
Qualcomm chip in the
I was just
Meta
going to.
Quest as well. It's just like it's I don't know, it's cool.
But yeah, and it's like super exciting because I think I'm speaking for all of us. Where in the last like 4 or 5 years, tech has been, I don't want to use the word stale, but it's been like stagnant. It hasn't been. It's like been plateauing. I think is a word I use a lot. Where it feels like everything got to a certain level of good, and we haven't had huge upgrades in like battery tech or mind-blowing power on mobile until like maybe this year or going into next year. And like those things are actually like huge improvements that actually benefit people. Like I remember going to CES like 3 years ago, and like all the enhancements were like AI speakers. We'll now like turn your speakers up automatically if we like hear your room noise get louder ambiently. And it's like this is where we've gotten to. I want like things that actually like make my experience a lot better. And I feel like with the all the competition that's been going on right now, especially in like the chip market with Apple coming in and Qualcomm coming in and Intel. I mean, their CEO just got like he said he retired, but there's reports that he was like basically ousted. They were like, "You got to retire, or we're gonna kick you out." And he was like, I'll retire then." So I think there's like so much competition happening right now that's really exciting. Because even in taking this a little step further from what we're talking about right now, but even in the GPU market, Intel, who is like maybe falling behind or falling out of the spotlight or falling out of grace in the chip the core CPU market is like starting to be competitive in the GPU market. They put out their second generation of GPUs yesterday. They're not coming until December 13th and January 16th or something like that. And these are just the mid-range ones. But similar to the first gen, their price to performance ratio is like so far and above anything you could get from Nvidia and AMD. Like I was looking it up yesterday on Newegg Canada, and if you wanted to buy a GPU for like $350, your best bet is definitely going to be these new Intel ones. They just have the most VRAM, the most features. And I was reading a ton of like reviews of people on like Reddit and stuff who had used the first generation, and people seemed, to be honest, like impressed with them. I know when they first came out in 2022, they were like huge issues and lots of games wouldn't run. But I was having a hard time finding people talking about games that wouldn't run on them nowadays. So it really does feel like all like this is what we love to see is a competition rearing its head and actually making products like fight to be the best. And I think the X
Yeah,
Elite, like you were talking about, John, is a great showcase of that.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much competition it's necessarily going to give to Apple because Apple's doing its own thing. It's almost like not a direct comparison that you can make because they've got their own chips, they've got their own hardware, they've got their own software stack, right? But in the PC market, I think they're really going to give Intel and AMD some competition, which hopefully means we'll see some huge improvements in efficiency and power from Intel and AMD as well to kind of try and keep pace with Qualcomm.
Or even for the
And
prices
overall, I
to
think,
stop rising. I think Intel and AMD
yeah,
chips have been going up and up and up for the past like 5 years to like ludicrous values.
yeah, absolutely. So here's hoping that this shakes things up a little bit and we see just all around benefits to consumers in price, power, efficiency, and yeah.
Right. I
I
just have
couldn't
one
agree
last
more.
question. Yeah, that's true. And it'd be actually really cool to see if consoles like, well, I guess what Nintendo does. The Switch is built on ARM. Am I wrong there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They
it's
use
cool
a
to
really
see.
old NVIDIA Tegra, I think it's called,
I think you're
processor.
right. So yeah, it'd be really cool to see. I mean, Switch 2 is coming soon, so that'll be like interesting to see where that lands on like the price to performance or power ratio, especially with like Dean saying, the ROG phone and the new iPhone 16s also being like so gaming capable. There's a lot coming on with like the chip market. It's pretty exciting. I just have one last question. It's a small one. Are Copilot Plus PCs all Snapdragon chips or Qualcomm chips, or can a
Uh,
Plus PC also be running off Intel or AMD? I know I should know
They
that.
can be running Intel and AMD now.
Okay,
When
okay.
they first launched, technically Qualcomm was the only one that had. So there's like a minimum spec in terms of AI capability that laptops have to meet in order to be a Copilot plus
Like a
PC.
couple of neural engines or something, or enough RAM.
Uh, I want to say it's 40 teraflops of, that sounds like a made up word, but like that's actually what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Tera operations per second is what it is. So
Oh,
TOPS or tops. I think it's
tops,
40
yes.
tops or 38 tops, something like that. So it doesn't really matter what NPU setup they have as long as they're capable of hitting that performance level for AI processing. And
That
so
makes
at
sense.
launch, I think technically the Snapdragon X Elite chips were the only ones that had an NPU capable of hitting that. But since then, AMD and Intel, I believe, have launched or are going to launch chips that also have that level of AI performance capability.
From my
Um,
understanding, has business devices that are capable of that, at least now already. I don't
mhm.
know if they have consumer devices yet that are
Intel
capable of that.
also like measures it a little bit differently. If I remember correctly, uh, their NPU isn't like as powerful like standalone, but they like do a combination where it like balances CPU, GPU, and NPU performance across the whole chip. So as a whole, it can hit that benchmark, but I don't think their NPU alone is at that level.
Fair enough. And I guess if unless you've got anything else you want to add on, I think I'll jump into my top.
No, you
All right.
go.
Yeah, so for me this year, just because of things I was talking about at the beginning of the podcast, I've started to cover a lot more Apple gear. So it was actually really hard to choose. I love it all. There's a lot of things to love. Vision Pro crossed my list, the M4 Mini crossed my list, but I'm like looking back, and I think the thing that I loved the most and probably used the most still to this day is the M4 iPad Pro. It's expensive. I don't know if it's the iPad I recommend to most people. But if you're like a huge nerd and you want a tablet that just feels futuristic, it is fantastic. It's so thin. Like every time somebody picks it up, they're always just like, whoa, this feels really nice. Like it feels like a futuristic tablet in a way that I think iPads haven't in a while because they're so heavy. The one thing that really like sort of solidified that for me is I've always was like an iPad mini user or even a regular sized iPad user. And I never really had that much love for the big 13-inch iPads. I just found them unruly. And I was like, if I'm going to get an iPad that big, why would I not just use a MacBook? But this year I have the big one. I'm using it right now for my show notes. And I probably use it every single day to, at the very least, watch movies before bed or TV or something. But I still, on top of that, I like sometimes write on it when I connect the Magic Keyboard. I take it with me whenever I travel anywhere now. Um, and it's just kind of like a fantastic little computer. I wish I played more games on it, but I still find myself if I'm going to be mobile gaming, I find myself dragged over to my phone a little bit. And I don't really mobile game on anything with the controller, even though I could technically be playing like Divinity or something. There's lots of options or like cooler games. And like
Do
it's a
you
little too big for Call of Duty. But yeah, what?
I was going to say, do you find that you use the iPad for work much, or do you still kind of gravitate towards a MacBook for that?
I want to go back to the iPad. So when I first reviewed it, I used it for a long time. I think I used it for like 2 or 3 months, honestly, as like my main just work thing. I would use Stage Manager. I could connect it to my display at home via USB-C and Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, and I would just use it like a computer. And actually, this week on Monday, when Gene and I were in the office, I went back to a Chromebook, and I'm using my Mac right now, but I'm going to set up Windows at my home desk for the story we're doing about like the Android sort of ecosystem or the flip side of the Apple ecosystem just in general. But using that Chromebook on Monday just made me think like again how much I love that iPad and how much I would rather use the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard than I would the Chromebook. Both of them I think are pretty comparable. You could do a little more gaming on the iPad, and like Photoshop might run a little smoother. They're pretty comparable, but I just the hardware on especially the iPad Pro is just like so hard to beat. And like as much as whenever I'm writing and reviewing, I'm always looking out for like the consumer and trying to find the best price performance ratio. But deep down, I think a lot of us are kind of the same way. If we had the money and we can get whatever we want, we're gonna buy the best things because they are the best. Like at a very simple level, just the screen, the OLED screen on the iPad Pro is like so freaking good for watching movies. Like I was watching Seven Samurai the other day. After I'd watched Gladiator 2, I came home and I was like, I need another like epic movie. And not that Gladiator 2 is anywhere near Seven Samurai, but it just was like that like epicness that I was like kind of like chasing that thrill. And I was like, oh, Alex wasn't really. She was doing some work, so I was like, I'm gonna watch Seven Samurai. I've never seen it. I'm gonna like sit down and watch it. And I watched the first half on my projector at home, and it was great. It was fantastic. And then I watched the second half on the iPad, and the movie's black and white. But the black and white on the OLED iPad screen was like so crispy. It was amazing.
Why'd you switch from projector to iPad?
It was just getting late at night, and I was like getting tired and wanted to go to bed.
It's what Akira Kurosawa would have wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the vision.
Yeah, it's definitely a little sacrilegious to be like saying how much I love watching movies on the iPad when I have like all these projectors and the Vision Pro or something. I guess I could have been watching it in the Vision Pro on in bed too, which is pretty chill. But it's just the way that my like kind of life is set up. I just like bring it up. I like set it up on my bedside table, and I just like watch movies. I don't hold it in my hand, but we watch movies in there like as we're falling asleep all the time. And yeah, the screen is just fantastic. But yeah, using it as a computer really surprised me this year.
Yeah, I do find your love for the iPad very surprising. I mean, I'm not in the Apple ecosystem and I don't really use iPads that much or at all, really. I have a Pixel tablet, which is not totally like a one-to-one comparison at all, but I really don't use it much at all. Like, it works as a smart display, a smart home display more than anything else, and I occasionally take it off the stand if I'm like, planning out some recipes for the week and doing, putting my grocery list together and stuff like that. I'll take it off and I'll use it when I'm doing that. But honestly, it sits on the stand 90% of the time. And when I'm cooking, I'll like pull up a recipe on it or maybe a video to watch while I'm making something. And that's kind of the extent of it. And I don't know what I would use the tablet for, any tablet for outside of that.
I think it really just depends on the person, right? Like for me, I only use my iPad mini when I'm traveling. But I gave my mom my Pixel tablet, and she has a Galaxy tablet of mine as well. And she leaves the Pixel tablet on the stand downstairs. So whenever she goes downstairs, she picks up the tablet and uses it. And she mostly uses it to like watch TV and watch stuff. And like she gave my little brother her laptop to use sometimes. So like she just uses it as like for everything. And when she's downstairs, and when she's goes back upstairs, she puts it back on the stand and uses the Galaxy tablet upstairs.
I think that's a good point too, and I think that is like the best feature of the Pixel tablet is the fact that it has this stand, that it has this like home to live in. I wrote a story a few weeks ago about this like monitor arm for the iPad that also is like magnetic and charges like the Pixel stand, and so I have that right beside my my Mac monitor, so I can use usually like every day. The iPad is this. They're not as good as they were last year, but the speakers on this really thin iPad are surprising. So I listen to music and podcasts on it all the time. And with universal control, I can like take my mouse from my Mac and just drag it over to the iPad and like use mouse and keyboard on the iPad, drag it back. So the iPad being beside the computer, means it's like your mom, always charged when I go to use it, which is really, really handy. B, a great like media device. I got like a Sonos Move 2 and an Apple HomePod in here. I use them very rarely compared to the iPad speakers because we have a pretty small office. It fills the room perfectly. It sounds really good. It's also facing me, gives me that like surround sound effect. And 3, I just use it as like my chat computer. Like I have like iMessage, Slack, email, and I just like roll through those on the iPad, and I just keep my like computer for like writing research, which is like such a menial. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. But it's like having that arm has allowed me to incorporate it into my work life alongside the Mac a lot more than I ever expected. And like you said with your mom, like just having it on that dock, having a home for it to go whenever I'm like done using it, just means it's like always charged up. It's really powerful, actually. It's surprisingly useful. And universal control, I think, is like very slyly. It's not even like it adds that much, but it just gives you the opportunity to use it during the day alongside your Mac, which I think the Pixel tablet, like even if you had it on your desk, you'd have to reach over, you'd have to type everything you want to type. Like being able to use my actual keyboard, I think, just makes me go to use it more, which is like very sly, but works.
Yeah.
So before this year, your iPad of choice would be the iPad Mini, I assume.
Yeah, it was.
This year, Apple came out with an iPad Mini as well as an iPad Pro. Um, where's your love for? Where's your continued love for the Mini versus the iPad Pro? Why? Yeah.
I think, and again, it doesn't really make sense, but the iPad Pro being thinner makes me it like just it's just enough to like click in my brain that it's like light in my bag. It's not taking up very much space. Like whereas I used to carry, if I had to carry an iPad Pro and a laptop, it was like I'm carrying two laptops, and now it's more like one and a half laptops, I guess. Which is nice, and I just again the OLED screen for watching movies is. I'm like, I guess I'm kind of a display snob in that way, but it's like if I'm gonna be watching a movie, I'd rather have the OLED screen. I'd sacrifice the extra bag space for the OLED screen compared to compared to the mini. That being said, I do like the mini still. I think Alex is sort of using it right now. Well, she asked to use it, has used it one time ever since we've had it in the house. I might steal it back. She's staring at me right now, but it might come back to my hands because I think it's the perfect like Balatro machine as we feel like as that keeps recurring throughout this whole podcast.
Actually, to jump in there on that, I do think the iPad Mini really shines as like a gaming device in a weird way. And part of why I say that is I tried out Razer's Kishi Ultra controller. And the neat thing about that is it's designed to stretch wide enough to work with an iPad Mini. And so when I tested it out, Razer actually set me up with an iPad Mini for a couple of weeks to try it with the controller.
Oh, cool.
And it was a surprisingly good gaming experience. The total cost for an iPad and the controller, you're kind of in the same ballpark as buying a handheld gaming PC, which I think for somebody who's really into gaming is probably the better option.
Yeah.
But like if you're just looking to play some fun mobile games and you already have an iPad Mini, then the Razer Kishi controller is like a great add-on to really upgrade that experience.
I mean, I think
So
Dean
I
has a
really
point
like
there with the iPad Mini being it is great for travel, truly.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the GameSir G8 Plus, which can stretch to fit the iPad Mini, but because of where the iPad Mini's buttons are, I find that I'm always either like uh, turning off the screen or adjusting. No, not turn off the screen. I'm always adjusting
The
the volume.
volume, yeah.
Yeah, which is
Mm-hmm.
super annoying. So it's cool that Razer thought of like, let's make a device for a tablet instead of for a phone, which
Because the
also
Mini
I
truly
like
is.
that.
It's like the PlayStation Portal. Like it's almost like that perfect screen size for gaming on the go or like in bed, you
Mhm.
know? Like it's big
I
enough
Mm-hmm.
that
just
you can
wish.
see everything, but it's still small enough that it feels portable and handheld, like more in the Switch realm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I've been gaming more on PC stuff, I'm always like, man, I just wish that there was like a Steam app for mobile, so you could just play games, Steam games on your phone. But we're not there yet.
Well, there
There
is
is.
technically Steam Link, but I think
Yeah,
I
it's not
don't
the
know if you
same,
could Steam
guys.
Link
It's yeah.
from the ROG Ally. That maybe you could be kind of weird, but like yeah,
Oh
similar
no,
to
the
how you.
ROG Ally can play just. Oh, I can. Sorry, yes, I can Steam Link from the ROG Ally. I do
Okay.
that, yes, but it's not the same as like just having the native app on your phone that you can download games or whatever, just so that like when I'm traveling, I have to revert to my ROG Ally, which is like I like it a lot, but it's pretty thick. It's a thick boy, right? So
I
Mm-hmm.
know. I'm in
and
that
then
boat
and then,
too. I don't have
and
one,
I
but
hate.
I've been wanting to buy one for so long, and it's just the size to performance ratio has just like held me back for a long time. And maybe I'm crazy, but yeah, it just feels a little huge.
I
No,
think it's great
that's
when like I'm playing it, and if I'm traveling and I have it out and I'm playing it, it's great. It's great, but I like to only do carry on, so I don't really have enough room for it a lot of times. So
Yeah.
I end up reverting to the backbone.
yeah, as a
Yeah.
long time Legion Go user, it's very thick and I'm glad that it has a kickstand because it's honestly the best way to use it. Holding it up
Uh,
is whoops, bump my mic. Holding it upright is it just wears on my wrists and I can't use it for very long. So having the kickstand allows me to kind of like set it up so that the weight isn't primarily on my hands or my arms, and that makes it a little bit more comfortable to use.
this
Yeah.
guy, oh, it's
Hopefully the
just
Switch
too
2 will hit like a
much. I'm
nice
so
midpoint
old
between
now.
these.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of all I have to say about the iPad. Maybe we'll swing back over to what you have next, Dean. Is it the ROG Ally by chance?
No, it's not. You'll love it. It's
Oh,
Gemini, I
perfect.
think.
Oh,
Um,
Dean, not
I
Gemini.
No, that's
I've
fair.
been
Somebody should
really
have had an AI thing somewhere on this list, so that's pretty good actually.
I really love using Gemini. I like Gemini Live. So for those who don't know, Gemini is Google's Chat GPT competitor. I use it on my Pixel phone, on my OnePlus phone, on my Samsung. It's available on any phone really because you can download the Gemini app on even on Apple
I was
devices.
gonna say I think you can get it
Now,
on iPhone now. Yeah.
yeah, as of I don't know whenever I was in New York last, so in November. I use it to if I'm looking at something on my phone, I'm like, hey, help me remember this. It takes a screenshot of my whatever's on my screen, and it will make a calendar, like a calendar, not invite, but like a
Like a
calendar
reminder, calendar reminder kind of thing.
reminder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Like a to-do.
On my phone to do it. I don't have to say like remind me to do whatever, whatever, whatever. It just it just sees what's on my phone and does it. I was at a did a Google event last month, and they had a lot of different They had a lot of different calendar invites and stuff like that. And I just told Gemini just to put all these invites on my calendar, and that worked great. And I've just been talking to Gemini Live like it's a friend sometimes, Like I wanted
I don't
to
know.
I I had a date and I was feeling very socially anxious that day, so I wanted to cancel it. And I didn't know what to say and how to sound nice and do it. So I asked Gemini Live. We just would talk back and forth what I should say, and it's like, maybe you can say this and maybe say that, and then okay, cool, I'll say that. Thank you. The issue was that it couldn't just like put that into like a Google Keep for me to copy and paste. But I mean,
Oh, that is
it
annoying.
saves it. It saves a log of everything anyway, so you just go back in Gemini and copy and paste it yourself. But I just, I wanted it to do the extra step for me. Um, yeah, I've just been really bonding with it. I'm trying to write a book. I'm trying to, and a lot of this book has, I'm a weeb, so sorry, I'm not a weeb. So I have some
Right on the fence.
Japanese.
Right on the fence. What, one toe
Sorry.
in and one toe out.
Yeah.
I have Japanese culture involved into what I'm writing, and I don't know everything. Obviously, I'm not obviously, but I'm not Japanese myself, and so or like weeb culture involved. So it comes up with sort of ideas. We talk back and forth. Like, what if I want it to be a spider monster? Because I'm writing a fantasy book, and it's like what are Japanese yokais that are spider related, and we go through different ones, and it's like, okay, what can this do, and blah blah blah, and it's really useful. I've just finding Gemini a lot more useful than I ever thought I would find it. And of course you could say the same thing about Chat GPT, but Gemini is just baked into a lot of these devices already. Like you just hold the power button on your my Pixel and it pops up. On the OnePlus, they replaced Google Assistant with Gemini already as well. And other phones are like that as well. So it's already baked in. I don't have to do anything extra. I just press, a button, it's there. And yeah, I'm enjoying it.
It actually will be interesting to see if like the OnePlus 13 and like the Samsung S25 series come with some sort of like Gemini free trial. Or is it Gemini Pro? What's the top version?
Advanced,
Gemini
isn't it?
Advanced, I
Advanced,
Advanced.
think.
yeah. Because it's like in Canada it's
But
pricey. It's like $26 a month,
but
and the
you don't
Pixel
need
comes with it, and Chromebooks come with it. So it would be cool if.
but you don't need advanced to talk to live or anything like that, right? So
Oh, you're
Yeah,
right.
it's
They
they
not.
did.
made
They
live
pulled that
available
out.
too. Yeah, they made it
Yeah.
free.
Classic Google bait and switch.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
and
buy,
Circle
buy
Surf
our buy
came
our
out.
top line Pixel to get free Gemini Advanced, so you can talk to Gemini Live, and then like a month later,
Psych.
they're like, actually, it's just free for everyone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Psych.
And iPhone
Uh,
users, and you're just like, the marketing on this is so weak. It's not even weak. It just
um,
feels so wishy-washy. Not that the product is bad, but the marketing is like, just pick a line and really like hold it. That we see that
uh,
with all kinds of Google products, like the Pixel Tablet 2. Apparently, it was canceled, but the 3 might come back, and 2 years ago. We were talking about this on Monday. Dean and I were like, the Pixel portfolio seemed like such a big deal years ago, and now they're like, it still is a big deal, but now it's like, now we just talk about Gemini. It's like, okay, like, yeah.
And like I have Apple Intelligence. I have the newest form of it on my iPhone as well to compare with, Google Gemini, and it just isn't as capable. For instance, like the whole here's what I'm doing this week on a note, list it out, put this on my calendar, and it can't do that.
Yeah, it seems like
Or
Apple
it-
is about like 2 years away on anything that might be in that realm from like the latest like kind of Bloomberg
Yeah.
reports.
And then it also like or like, hey, like what's on my screen and send it to whatever. It just can't do that either. So I'm definitely vibing with Gemini and Gemini Live. And it's just, I made my Gemini Live sound hot too. It's just nice to talk to someone
Which
hot.
voice did you do? I think I did the British man voice.
No, I
when
just did the basic voice. He's just hot
That's
enough.
the hottest voice to you?
I mean, I don't
Interesting.
need anything else.
I don't remember which voice I chose, but I went through a bunch of them and selected one. But
I always set my digital assistants to be British because it reminds me of what's the name of Batman's butler?
Alfred.
Alfred.
Yeah, I'm always like going for that Alfred vibe.
Yeah.
Mine, my Apple, my Siri is British, but it's a British
Nice.
man. But
Yeah. Cool.
Interesting.
Do you wanna...
Sorry, I was just gonna jump in and say my experience with Gemini has not been as wonderful as yours, Dean. So it's very surprising to me
You're just
to
a
hear how much
hater.
you like it. A little bit. I mean, so
There
first
is something
off,
admirable
like,
about how much you have forced yourself to use it, Dean. Like it almost is like a muscle you have to develop that I think we've been.
Yeah.
I
I
feel
think
like I'm
because we're
forcing
content
myself.
creators, writers, we're like AI. I think it's just something about it for us that feels like we don't need it, even though we
yeah.
probably all can use a bit of
part
it.
of what I was gonna say is that, from a work perspective, I feel like I can't use it for my job.
it feels like cheating.
It
That
feels
being
like
said,
cheating.
we do use Grammarly, which has some. It's like more AI based than it used to be. Which kind of
But that's a
like
little bit
try
different.
not to
That's-
think about it, but yeah, it's
That's
it
like
made Grammarly
spell
worse.
check, right?
I think it did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It like tries to rearrange sentences way too much now, and it's like just
Yeah.
tell me if the words are spelt wrong. Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like for Gemini and AI stuff in general, I feel like the few times where I have tried to use it for work, any level of time savings that it gave me was immediately eaten up by me having to fact check everything that it did because it would get stuff wrong and like
Really?
constantly enough that it was not worth using anymore for work. But I've tried using it in my personal life as well because I'm like, there's lots of stuff in my personal life where I'm like, okay, this is like a tedious thing that I have to do. Like every week I put together a grocery list and do grocery shopping. And I'm like, okay, I've picked like 5 recipes that I want to make this week. Can one of these things just pull out the list of ingredients from the recipes and build my grocery list for me? I feel like that is a pretty simple thing that these AI things should be able to do. And I tried it with Gemini. I tried it with ChatGPT and Claude and Copilot, and it couldn't do it. It would add ingredients that weren't in any of the recipes. It would get the measurements wrong. It would just like make stuff
Okay,
up.
but are you okay? Let me ask a question. Are you having it so that it's taking a screenshot of what you're doing and then doing it?
I fed it the URLs. So I had the recipes were online. I gave it the URL, and it was able to access the URL and like pull out the information. But it would add stuff that wasn't in the recipe, and it would get measurements wrong.
It should,
And it would
do
miss stuff,
that for
too.
you, and then it should send you like a second follow up and be like, just so you remember, variety is the spice of life, and then it would be fine. It's
Yeah.
all about how it frames it.
Okay,
I thought you might want
I
to make
can
an extra
see.
dessert this week.
I can see why that's annoying for you. I just use it differently. Cause for me, I would have it on. I would have the recipe on my phone, looking at it, and then I would say, make a grocery list off that.
Yeah, the reason I didn't do that is because I had 5 recipes and I wanted to do them all at once.
Totally, yeah. That's fair.
But yeah, I feel like for these things to be more useful for me, they need to be reliably not wrong, and they're just not at that level yet.
Yeah.
I don't have your problems, John.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. The only AI stuff I really use, obviously Photoshop, like generative fill AI with like little bits here and there. I have been running the 18.2 beta, so I have dipped into ChatGPT to answer like some. I wish I could remember what the questions were. Some like random sort of trivia-esque questions, and it was been helpful with that kind of stuff. Like we said, Grammarly a little bit, although that is maybe overstepping more than we want it to. And that's about, I think, as far as I've gone into AI this year. But maybe one of my goals for 2025 should be to give it like a real shot. Have you been using it at all, Brad? Do you any AI in your
No.
life? No.
Not at all.
Fair.
Couldn't appeal to me less.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well,
but yeah, I think maybe
Brad,
that's a good time.
you're next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe that's a good time to go into your next favorite thing, Brad.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with games again. My second favorite game of the year is another JRPG called Metaphor ReFantazio. As I mentioned, it's one of the 6 games up for Game of the Year. It's from Studio Zero, which is a team within Atlas, which is a team within Sega, consisting of former people who made the Persona games. So it's like the same director, same character designer, same composer, so a lot of the same key staff. So it's kind of like a spiritual successor to Persona, but to Dean's point about weeb stuff, I've grown really tired of anime school kids. I feel like that's everything in anime media that I see. And even with Persona, that was something that started to grate on me towards the end of that series. Every game is sort of anime school kids. So
Well, there were
I
like
love
five,
that they take the
five
sort of
mainline personas, right?
Yeah.
And then a bunch of spin-offs. So I
and
guess yeah, that
spin-offs.
is
So
a lot
they take
of one
the
medium.
They take the style of Persona and the music, the really good music of Persona, and that sort of those elements, and translate it to kind of high fantasy. So it's kind of like medieval Victorian era sort of fantasy, but with like an interesting meta level where the monsters you fight are actually called humans, and they're inspired by, I think, 14th century art. So they're like really inspired sort of designs, and it's just that game. I actually went to bat, like, as much as I love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth story on a personal level, and obviously there are some issues with it, but I think Metaphor, beat for beat, has probably the best story of well, I wouldn't say the best story of any game I've played. I'll shout out another game in my honorable mentions, but it's probably got the best game on, like, in terms best story in terms of like high profile games and what's nominated and everything. It's they obviously could not have planned this because it was in development for 7 years basically, but it came out literally like a month before the election, and the story is literally about your character trying to become king, to prevent a really bad person from becoming king. And so it's about the impending election in that universe. And but what I love about the game is Persona's always touched on social issues, but hasn't always handled them all very well. But this game, it's actually incredible how well it handles this material, like from themes of like racism and classism, and even things like one of your characters is like a formal nobleman who tries to use like what little sort of privilege he has to help like displaced migrants, and that whole quest is him trying to like find a place for them because like nobody will let them, stay with them. Basically, like they have no home. Or one side quest is sort of one person who's like very downtrodden and kind of lower class, fighting with other lower class people because that's kind of what happens sometimes. The lower classes fight among each other when obviously the real villains are the upper class ones. So there's a lot of really interesting story beats, and the game, what I really respect about it, and a lot of people praise it for it as well, is it puts in the effort to show the characters putting in the work to make this change happen. Like, it's not just, oh, racism is bad, the end. Like, as much as I love Final Fantasy 16, that's kind of how that came out last year. That's kind of how that story was. It's like, oh, racism's bad, but it didn't really kind of interrogate it deeper. And a lot of games kind of fall into that trap where they touch on those themes. But Metaphor actually, over the course of like 70, 80, 90 hours, explores these themes in such a meaningful way. Like, to the point where, like, when I came out of it, I'm like, I wanted to try to do some good in the world. Like, that might sound cheesy, but like and this was before the election too, so I think it resonates even more at post-election. But yeah, just like it makes you feel like genuinely like, man, this is really good. And then just as an RPG, it's just a really good RPG. It is classic turn-based style, which I've always liked.
So
It
flashy.
has, yeah,
I
it's
was gonna
got,
say it's
like
very
I said, the
stylish.
Persona is known for having some of the best like art direction and UI in games. Like when you're snapping through menus, it's so stylish, and that's retained in Metaphor as well. The soundtrack is really great. It's the same composer. The main battle theme is like an actual like Japanese monk kind of like rapping, and it's so damn good. It was actually when I did like the Apple Music replay, because I don't use Spotify. It said I was in the top 1,000 fans for that monk.
Nice.
Because I
That's
just
pretty
kept
cool.
listening to the theme so much.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping at the Game Awards he comes out and performs at some point, because it's so good, the music. So yeah, it's a fantastic game. Like if it won Game of the Year over Rebirth, I would not be unhappy with that at all. Like I think if I'm trying to be more objective, it is obviously a new IP, it's a new story, it's a new game. So I kind of have to give it the edge in that sense. It's a fantastic game.
You're
think
really
it's
selling
worth-
this one, Brad. I kind of want to check it out
It's
now.
actually so fun. So I'm not through it all at all anywhere near, because it's a very long JRPG. But I'm 30 hours in, I'd say, or at least that's what my PlayStation tells me. And I'm not into these JRPGs really. It's not my thing, except for Pokemon. But and like I've tried to play Persona 5. I just couldn't get into it. It just wasn't for me. But this game is a lot of fun. I was very surprised by that. Yeah, I don't know. It was really enjoyable. I'm not done, but I keep going back slowly over time. But I don't know, it's just so flashy, and the music's so good. Oh, the music, I just like, just Brad's right. It just slaps.
For someone who might not be like familiar with the JRPG style of game, is Metaphor like a good entry point into that kind of theme or type of game, or are there better options?
I wouldn't
Pokemon.
say it's a good like entry point, because it is such a big commitment. Like I would even say something like Sea of Stars that came out last year from Quebec studio Sabotage is probably like a better sort of entry point, because it's only like 20 or 30 hours, and it's a lot more linear. I think Metaphor is a great game to get into if once you've kind of dipped your foot into other JRPGs, because yeah, it's so long, it's such a huge commitment. Part of the thing, it's a strength to the game to be sure, but it's also kind of a weakness if you're not someone who likes to invest so much time into a game, is that it kind of uses a calendar system. So you can't really speed run the game. You kind of have to go like day by day, and like, you choose how to spend the afternoon, you choose how to spend the evening, and then there's obviously required days where you're doing story stuff. So in that sense, it does kind of add to the RPG elements, because you're role playing this character, and you can decide, oh, I want to spend time with this character, or I want to do this activity to increase my stats. But because of that, it means it is very long. Like I think I did some optional stuff towards the ends, but I think removing that, it probably would have taken 70 plus hours. So yeah, it's a little daunting, I would say. So I mean, if you're someone who that doesn't put you off, I'd say give it a shot. But yeah, it probably wouldn't be my first suggestion for a JRPG. If anything, I would say the like original Final Fantasy games that are on from the PlayStation era that are on like every platform, those are like 20 or 30 hours and turn-based. Those are more manageable, like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, or even the Pixel remasters that they released of the original 6 Final Fantasy games. Those are probably better options to start with, and then maybe get into Metaphor if you like those. But
The Metaphor got me really excited for next year's Clair Obscura. Clair Obscure? Clair Obscure?
yeah.
I think it's supposed to be shorter as well, but it seems very like flashy and nice looking and turn based. I don't know. It's super cool looking too. But Metaphor, I don't know. Metaphor has opened my eyes, and like maybe I won't hate JRPGs as much as I thought.
We're like the complete opposite. Like, I'm not into anime, but I love JRPGs, and you're vice versa. It's really
The
funny.
only JRPG I
funny.
really like is Pokemon, which you don't like. So I mean, it is very strange.
Hey, that's good though. That makes for interesting conversation. That keeps us on both sides of the coin here.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're just crapping on each other's opinions. That's it. No, this game's better. No,
We're just
this
four
game's
guys that
better.
hate each other and hate tech.
I think I actually. Wait, am I allowed to say what I personally voted when I went through my Game Awards? Like when I just did it on my own personal account. Is that allowed? You think?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah.
All right, I voted for Metaphor Refantasio for best narrative. Yeah,
And Game of the Year or
it's,
just best narrative?
just best narrative.
Oh, right, because you like Elden Ring so much, right?
Maybe.
Oh, wait, did you go? Did
The
you go down? Did
controversial
you do Black Myth?
Game of the
What
Year
did you
pick.
do?
No, I think I picked Elden Ring just because I I love
guy.
Elden Ring. I know it shouldn't win, but it felt wrong not to vote a game that I had so much fun playing. It shouldn't
that's
win.
fair. I mean, you gotta
will
follow
go
your
on
heart.
record. I will go on record saying that Elden Ring should not win Game of the Year. It is not. It already won Game of the Year. It shouldn't win again, and it shouldn't win based off a DLC that you can't play unless you gotten 3/4 away through the story.
Yeah, that part is a bit tough.
I had a lot of fun playing, and I had already done the 3. It's not like I had to go back and
And there were lots of
these
people that
sessions.
had. I mean, Elden Ring 1 was,
Yeah.
or Elden Ring itself was very popular.
Yeah, so I did vote for it, but I don't think it should win. It just felt wrong not to vote for a game that I had a lot of fun playing and had a lot of fun talking to my friends. We were playing it at the same time. I had a lot of fun going back and forth with it. It's not me. It's John's turn or Brad. Let's see if
Well,
more
wait,
stuff
I
to
just
go.
have one more
It's Brad.
question for Brad about Metaphor Refantasio. I guess it's 2 questions. Technically, does it ever get explained in the story what a Refantasio is? Is that a thing, or is that just like a cool word they just tacked on?
I mean, it's a kind of a cool way of referring to the concept of fantasy. That's a very Japanese way of flavor of saying fantasy. Because the game plays with like I said, it's kind of meta. It plays with the concept of what is a fantasy and what is reality in terms of like this idyllic world where inequality doesn't exist. Is that a fantasy sort of thing? So
It's like a fantasy.
Oh,
That's
I guess so. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I see the root words of it there.
And
Okay,
TCO.
fair enough. I was just curious. And I guess the other question I kind of have is, would you rather they do a sequel to this or another Persona game next? Or, wild card, another Trauma Center? Because I'm pretty sure Trauma Center is Atlas as well.
So this team, Persona 6 is all but confirmed to be in development from another team. So, and presumably that should be coming out fairly soon, we would imagine, because the Persona 5 came out in 2017, and then that team moved on to Metaphor, so presumably another team started working or whatever. So yeah, we're going to get Persona 6 in some form. Whoever is making it and working on it, I don't know what it'll be. But for me, from this team, I think I'd want to see something different. I mean, I think this game proves that you can still have that Persona DNA while also doing something different. It's partly why I've always loved Final Fantasy as a series, because it's an anthology, so every game is kind of a new thing. Similar concepts and ethos, but it is like a different story and worlds, etc. every time. So I would like to see that, I think.
Are the Personas anthologies as well, or no?
I mean, they're all different.
I didn't know.
Yeah. No, they're all different characters and everything. They have a few like crossover games that are spin-offs, but otherwise they're all standalone, which I like.
Yeah. Cool.
Fair enough. All right, John, take us away. What do you got? Something's going
All
on.
right. So my next, tech item of the year is the Pixel 9 Pro. Now, the whole Pixel 9 series this year, I think, was really solid. I think it was a great lineup, but I want to highlight the Pixel 9 Pro especially because Google finally did the one thing that I wanted them to do, which is make a small version of their Pro phones. I like smaller phones. I find they fit better in my hand. They're easier to use. And so, I was really bummed that with starting with the Pixel 6 series, they had a Pro version that was bigger and had some extra features, because I was like, I like the small one, but I'm missing out on, that telephoto camera and like, whatever other Pro features they had. The telephoto camera was kind of the biggest one. So this year, having the Pixel 9, the 9 Pro, and the 9 Pro XL meant that I could have that small Pro Pixel, and it's just been fantastic. I've been using it for a couple months now as my daily driver, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is like the Pixel for me.
I read your review, but I don't remember it very well. How is the battery?
The battery life is fine. It's about the same as the regular Pixel 9.
See, that's what you miss out on an XL. You're missing out on better batteries. You just gotta go bigger.
Yeah, but it's not as comfortable to use. I mean, the Pixel 9 Pro gets me through the day fine. Most of the time, it's like 40%, 30% at the end of the day when I plug it in, and then I charge it overnight. So like, I'm not like getting to the end of the day and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm not like needing to charge it at 5 p.m. or whatever, right? Although, like, if I was going out in the evening, maybe I'd top it up before I left the house. But like, the battery life is fine for my typical use. Sure, the battery life would be a little bit better with a bigger phone, but I'm like, it's not that big of a difference, really.
Do you think, with the sort of leaning off of your last favorite thing or more like what Dean added to it, but do you think with the success of where Snapdragon and Qualcomm's going with its chips, do you ever think either Google like retools the tensors to become like much more competitive in terms of power and performance, or do you think maybe there's a world where the Pixel chips go off tensor and back to Snapdragon?
Definitely, they're going to be sticking with Tensor. I mean, there was a lot of leaks earlier this year of like the next 2 or 3 Tensor chips, like the roadmap that Google has for what's coming in that realm. I don't see Google abandoning
its own Tensor chips too. Like, they're getting tired of Tensor chips are just reimagined Exynos chips, right? So the Google's planning on making its own in a couple years, I believe, as well. So, I mean, they are sticking with that.
They're looking at switching to TSMC, which is the company that makes Apple's chips or like manufactures them. But the actual chip designs aren't going to be changing a lot. They're just going to have TSMC make them instead of Samsung.
Fair enough. And to be fair, as we saw with Apple, I mean, I saw somebody tweet about this on Threads with the Intel CEO retiring, whatever, that it was like, Apple had been playing this ARM Power PC, like their own chip game from way, way, way back. It didn't all happen overnight. It takes a long time to build up to the point where you then become like in the race for best chip.
Mm-hmm. Google's whole thing with Tensor is that their focus is more on like the neural machine learning AI side of it, and enabling, on-device machine learning and AI features that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do on other phones. I don't know how well that argument holds up in like the current chip market, because I feel like most chips have some sort of neural engine, and most Android smartphones can do the features that are available on Pixel to some level.
Yeah, Google was maybe like a little bit ahead of the curve, but with the sort of AI hype train that has just been building for the last 2 years, I think everyone is really starting to catch up in that regard.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see how things go, like, moving forward. And even now, like, some of Google's most advanced camera capabilities still require off-device processing, right? So it's like, you've got Tensor, but like, how good is it really? I wrote about this a lot in both my Pixel 9 and 9 Pro review. I would really, really love to see Google put some effort into upgrading Tensor to make it a little bit more competitive with what Qualcomm and Apple are doing. It doesn't need to match them or even beat them in performance. It just needs to start like closing the gap. And the reason I say that is the price of the Pixel 9 series is in line with the S24 series and the iPhone 16 series, right? And so if I have, $1,000 to spend on a phone and I'm looking at these three options, I'm going to be drawn to the S24 or the iPhone because just from a performance level, it's so much further ahead. Even though, most of what I do on the Pixel phone runs fine, right?
Yeah.
And for the vast majority of people, 99% of what you're going to do on the Pixel 9 is going to run fine. You're not going to have any issues. But it's that last little bit, if you're playing a more intense, more graphically intense game or like trying to edit a photo or something, where you're going to start to notice that difference a little bit more. And like long-term performance, once we're like 4 or 5 years into the phone's life cycle, because Google's promising 7, 8 years of support for the phones now, which is great. But
7
I worry
updates, and this next one
updates,
coming like a little early might bring it a little less than 7 years.
It's specific 7 years.
Is it years?
7 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So potentially, all right.
I spoke to the Android guy about that, and he's just like 7 years. Sorry, it feels not great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still an improvement over 5 years or 5 updates or whatever. But like,
and to be fair, I don't really know anyone that uses a phone that long, but that's beyond like our parents, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is I have concerns about how the phone is going to hold up in 5 years' time when the current level of performance is roughly equivalent to, an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 12, which is like a 4-year-old phone already, right?
But they were ahead of them, kind of, as well. If you give them that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we'll see how things go. But yeah, I mean, chip aside, I just like that they finally brought the Pro features into a smaller form factor because that's all I wanted Google to do for a long time.
And I feel like we've been harshing on this a little bit much, but there's a lot of good things with the Pixel. I mean, there's tons of cool AI features. The like put yourself in a photo thing is really cool. I think within Black Friday, I could be wrong. Samsung always has a strong wave of deals, but I think some of the best deals possible were on Pixel phones, and all the people I know that have switched to Pixel since the 6 fell in love instantly. So like, I think we put maybe of like a darker spin on your favorite thing, but I think there is a ton to love there. And again,
also,
I love the way the operating system looks. Just let me take the freaking widget off the home screen. I don't need to have the temperature or the clock on it twice. Why? But why not give me the option to take it off?
I'm using another phone now, and I missed the widget.
That widget is like half the reason why I like using a Pixel phone.
But they have like a better version of the widget you can add, and then you have 2 widgets that tell you like, hey, your flight's coming up, and it's like, let me take one of them off and let me use the material design one. It doesn't really matter. That's like a really big personal thing, but it seems so strange to me that you're like locked into that widget.
The Pixel 9 Pro is a little bit cheaper than the iPhone 16 Pro, or
a little bit, yeah.
Or S24 Ultra. Like a good $200-$300 difference. So there's a little bit.
It's on sale right now, though, isn't it?
No, I'm looking off sale. Just their regular
okay.
Well, he's
price.
talking Pro to Pro, but I think what John's saying with chip regards is like you don't even have to go Pro on iPhone to have a chip that really outpaces the Pixel. Like in terms of camera, the Pixel is way better than the iPhone 16 because it has that zoom lens and a couple other things, and that like AI video up-res thing seems to work really, really well too.
But that's also what John's saying is that's off. That's not even on device. You send it somewhere, they give it back to you in like what, 10 minutes.
Part of like I was a little bit more forgiving with previous Pixel phones and tensor performance because like the Pixel 7 was like a good $300-$400 cheaper than the iPhone at that time, if I remember correctly.
And they were only a few years
into
There was
a bigger
price.
There was a bigger price gap. So I was like, okay, if you're saving a lot of money, I'm like, sure. It doesn't matter as much that the performance isn't there. But with the price gap closing.
The price gap is closing, but at the same time, the iPhones are also getting more and more expensive. Like for instance, the iPhone 16 Pro
Max
256 what?
The Pro Max is only 256 gigs, so the
price
is like...
sorry, just not Max. The iPhone 16 Pro is $1,600, right?
Yeah.
Versus the Pixel 9 Pro, which is $1,350. So there's a good $250, and then Google will go on sale. So Google is trying to make like Google's devices are the more affordable ones, and you still get the flagship experience. You just miss out on you can't play games. Or
I think
you can't play certain games as well.
There might even be an argument to be made. I read this yesterday. I don't think we ended up putting it into links, but like the best-selling phone worldwide was like the iPhone 15 series this year, not the 16. Um, and I
Mm.
feel like a lot of people, because the 50, like the year-old iPhones are the ones that go on sale, I do think those are the ones that people end up buying the most. So there is an argument to be
It.
maybe like we should be comparing to that perhaps, which
Mhm.
brings maybe
Perhaps,
the
yeah.
price gap a little smaller,
Hmm.
and the performance gap a little smaller as well, actually.
Uh, I pulled it up because I was curious. iPhone 16 Pro, $1,449 in Canada. Pixel 9 Pro, $1,349. It's a
I think
$100
Dean
price
might have been
difference.
No,
comparing the
but
256 gig because the Pixel starts at
yeah, doesn't the
256.
Pixel start to the
Oh,
6? Yeah,
Am I wrong
oh,
about that? But I think yeah,
I'm
interesting.
pretty
because
sure it does.
I
Yeah.
mean that's why we have jobs,
Okay,
really.
that
Is like
changes things.
we're really comparing these things, and that's like why we always write the carrier stuff. Well, my headphones just like noise canceling clicked on or transparency. I don't know what's going on, but we always are like, this is the price over 2 years. Is that actually a better deal than buying it outright and getting a bring your own device plan? Which I like to say it as much as I
No,
can. Usually, it's not.
they both start at 128.
Oh, the
Oh,
Pixel
okay.
9 Pro starts at 128. Does the 9
Yeah.
Pro XL start at 128?
Maybe the 9 Pro XL is bigger, but I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
similar.
yeah,
The
yeah.
the iPhone
Yeah.
XL starts at
Yeah, and I
256 as well, but
I
the
never
price went
reviewed.
up significantly because of that.
Yeah, I never reviewed the. Oh no, they're both 128. Oops, awkward.
Well,
What do
I
I
mean,
know?
we figured it out,
It's
and I think all
so
the points
that's the
still
other thing.
stand.
Yeah. Phones are just super confusing now. Because like they all start at different price points and storage options and stuff, right? Like you need to sit down and like open up 4 different websites and like compare and take notes and like analyze every little spec.
If we go by
Um,
RAM, I mean Google's 16 gigabytes of RAM, and then Samsung's is what 8 or 12, and then Apple is what
I
6
think
or
eight.
8. But
I,
then
I think they're
yeah,
all eight now
eight,
because of
eight, eight now,
Apple
yeah.
Intelligence. Yeah.
But I mean, does that matter? I don't know. There's a lot to compare. And
I would
sorry
say
for
it definitely
hijacking your
does.
favorite thing.
No, I mean this is the conversation. I think that to be fair, and I don't know for certain, but I expect our audience to be the most into this aspect of the conversation. But no, I mean, and like John said, carriers, everything, it's just so confusing. Like Alex and I went to a Telus store to try to get a new internet plan. It ended up not working out because it was a terrible deal unless you had a Kudu phone or a Telus phone. Um, but like overheard the guy before me trying to get a new plan, and the Telus guy was like slandering Freedom. He's like, you don't want to get Freedom, like your service is going to be terrible, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, took everything in my
that's
power
funny.
because I had to talk to this guy next, so I didn't want to like go up and just clown him. Not that that's maybe too harsh. I'm not going to clown anyone. It's be a very subtle, like, hey, I have Freedom. It's actually pretty good. They've changed a lot of things in the last 2 years. But it's like even the salespeople when you go to like Best Buy and the carrier stores, they can't even keep up with all of the change that's happening all the time. It just adds to the confusion. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's probably maybe I guess a point to move on.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to move on. I don't have anything else to say about the 9 Pro other than it is small and I like it.
And you love the case. You have a Peak Design case that's really nice, actually, right? Peak Design one. The buttons are awesome.
Yeah.
I still think about those like buttons without getting too much back into that one.
Yeah, I actually I took the case off after I came home from the office that day and I haven't put another one back on. So
Yeah. No
Yeah, to be
cases.
fair, yeah, the no case zone is the most fun. But the Peak Design case, point stands, really really nice, and
it
it
is
has
a
like
really
the
nice
magnetic
case.
attachments and the quad lock, if you
Yeah.
like bike and stuff. So it's pretty cool. Felt good. I've been thinking about it. But yeah, okay, moving on to my favorite thing. This is something that I've wanted for pretty much my whole life. I bounced back and forth between phones. I often use two more and more lately, especially as I was doing more like video work for the site. I was really leaning more on my iPhone more than anything. So I've definitely, and then this year doing all of the iPhone and Apple coverage, I've definitely been within the Apple ecosystem. But this year, finally, thanks to the EU, Apple has allowed emulators on iPhone, and that is like my favorite thing of the year. It probably should have been my number one actually above the iPad. I had a blast when Delta
I don't
came
think we're
out.
going in any order.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's only two things. It's not much of a ranking. But yeah, Delta is like the one I use the most. There's a bunch of emulators for iPhone. I think if you want to play classic Nintendo consoles and or Sega Genesis, Delta is the best one to use, and it's just awesome. Like I have played 2 Pokemon games this year. My friend Joey's played a bunch. Did you play one on Delta, Dean, or were you on Android when you were playing?
I mean, I was on Delta and I didn't finish it. I got to the 8th gym leader. Oh,
That's
I
pretty
already
far.
did it.
That's enough. We'll count it. It even works on
Out of
the
16.
iPads. Yeah. Oh, you were playing Hard or Soul Silver, right? Either way,
Yeah.
the first half of that one, it's still long enough. It's a lot of gameplay in there. I can play it on the Vision Pro. It's awesome. It's like the thing that I the thing that always annoyed me with Android emulators, they were there, they exist, they're actually still better because you can emulate like GameCube and Wii and PlayStation 1 and 3DS better than you can on iPhone because iPhone doesn't allow you to use this programming thing called JIT, which stands for just in time, which allows you to like figure some of the stuff out. You can figure it out, but it's kind of this janky like third party. You got to get some beta stuff going on there and have like a computer working as a server. It's a long road to go down to get it to work on an iPhone. On Android, you've got a lot more options, but on Android, none of the emulators really were ever that well designed. I feel like, and this is generalizing a little bit, but I feel like a lot of people that have like creative design forward jobs are on Apple. And so there's always just feels like when you're in these like niche categories that the apps on Apple, and this has really faded a lot over the last few years, but it still stands true in the emulator thing. The apps on Apple just seem to have so much more polish and like a really clean design. And that's something which I probably value too high, but Delta knocks it out of the park. And there are certain people who make skin, like when I was playing Pokemon on a OnePlus phone, there's this emulator I was using called Drastic, which was fine. It worked really well, had all the features you would want, and there's like 12 skins that you can get that are like decent. And Drastic has been out for years, and it's totally fine, really good. But when you compare that to Delta, it is just night and day. Like there is hundreds, if not thousands, of skins you can get to Delta, and not all of them are good, but there are so many that are so good. There's to shout out to a creator called Sean Fletcher. He makes amazing skins. They look so realistic. I don't know what he does for a career that he's so good at design, but those skins are amazing, and the app itself is fantastic. You can use AirPlay and a wireless controller to turn your iPhone into a wireless console with Delta. You can have the game wirelessly transferring up to your Mac or your TV screen, and you have a wireless controller, and your iPhone is just like sitting on the table in front of you. And there's something about that that just feels magical. And I played a bunch of Pokemon, some Trauma Center, which is like this doctor game that's really, really fun. If no one's ever played it, it's definitely worth trying out. If you have a Wii or even on Delta, it's a DS game. I played a game called Survival Kids, which is like a Game Boy Color game from Konami that is like so far ahead of its time. There's like multiple endings, there's crafting, it's like you can see the basis of a lot of games that like really I feel like sprung up in the 2010s. It really seems to harken back to Survival Kids. It's really interesting. And I also found a Genesis game, and I think it's NHL 94 or 98, but somebody re-updates the rosters every single year with like modern NHL rosters, so you could play with like the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights in this really, really fun arcade style hockey game. Like Patrick and I used to play on an iPad, and sometimes we would even put it up on the TV at work back before we got sold to Zoomer. And we would like finish work and we would play. Like we did it a couple of times, but it's super fun, and I think it's just something I've always wanted. The like number one thing that I liked about Android over iPhone was the fact that you could get emulators and you could play retro games. Similar to what Brad said with Final Fantasy, I feel like I really, really love nostalgia, and especially the last couple of years, I've been really going back to memory lane and playing a lot of old games that I used to play, and I've been really enjoying the nostalgia kick of it. Especially during like the summertime or the Christmas holidays that are coming up. There's just something about like gaming during those times that bring a lot of nostalgia to me. And Delta dropping this year has been like just a bomb of nostalgia. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I really want to echo what you're saying there, because seeing, I'm not really an iPhone user, so I've kind of been watching all of the Delta stuff happen secondhand, and it's been so cool to see that community like blossom and grow and all of that emulator stuff. And there's been like a huge, almost like resurgence, it feels like, in people caring and being interested in that stuff, with it coming to iPhone. So it's been really, really cool to just kind of watch that community flourish. from the sidelines, like I've been doing.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I even after Delta came out, I was really big into the emulator thing. I did do a story on Android trying to find comparable emulators on Android. And again, there are lots of them. They all run fantastic. But there's nothing that is just that all-in-one, like awesome, beautiful design, awesome, cool features like Delta. And
Were you
Delta
even
should
making your
have
own?
trading for DS soon. That's in beta right now. So DS Pokemon games I should be able to trade with soon. Trade within Delta, which is
Don't
really cool.
and don't you even have your own like skins based off of someone else's skin,
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's true. I
Situation
should tell
going?
that story too. That's actually, this was like my one attempt at Reddit, and I got like destroyed. Those guys really hurt my feelings. But um, so basically, there was this Delta skin that I found early on when it first came out. It's not my favorite one ever. I forget the guy who made it, but it's really, really well designed. It's not quite as realistic looking as the Sean Fletcher skins, but it's really close. We definitely have a story about it that I can link in the show notes or something. But essentially, this guy had made this pack of skins. It was like $5 or $6, and you got like a skin for every single console within Delta. So that's like, I don't even know, 6 or 7 skins and a bunch of different color options. But as Dean was saying, we were playing a lot of Pokemon, and I always wanted my phone to look like a Pokedex. I'm still sad that Apple doesn't do product red phones anymore because I love how much they look like a Pokedex. And then so I took one of that guy's skins, I desaturated it, and I
That may
like
come
painted
back,
it.
by the way, one day.
Yeah, they did have a
Product red.
huge product red thing in the App Store the other day.
Yeah. So don't
So
don't say like yeah. Just don't dismiss product
I'm not
red for
dismissing. I'm
now.
just I'm
It might
hoping
come back.
it was cool.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
always
Okay.
used to buy
Okay.
the product red cases, and it doesn't matter. Um, and so I painted one to be red and had like blue buttons, and I put like a little. I made like some Pokeballs look kind of like a Wi-Fi symbol, and I forget what else I did. That might have been it, but some gold buttons at the bottom. I like was looking at all different kinds of Pokedexes over the years and trying to translate them into the skin, and then I posted a picture of it that I took on Twitter, and it was like my most popular tweet I've ever made in my life, which was kind of cool. It was like a big up moment for me. And then I found the guy that made them on Twitter and reached out to him, and I was like, "Hey, I made this. Like, people seem really into it. Can I give it out?" Because again, I paid for them. It was his work that I just kind of co-opted, and so I asked him, and he was like, "Oh, how about like we make one for every console and we add it into the skin pack, and that way I can email it to people who have already bought it." I'm like, perfect. So we spend our next week like again a long time. Like it takes a while to do all this like painting. I was doing it on an iPad with Apple Pencil actually, which was really cool. But it just it's tedious work. So we do all that. We make it. We finally put it out. I like post about it on Reddit, and those guys like went nuts. They were so mad at me. They were like, "This guy is putting out this app for free. How dare you charge for skins? Like, get a job, you bum!" Like it was like, yeah, I went to war over like the value of art and that it should be worth something, and not everything can be free. And again, like I'm not in control of this pricing, as none of this is like my way. Like if I was in control, I probably would have just given it out for free because I'm just like so happy to be here and happy to be having emulators in iOS. But yeah, I ended up having to like take the post down because people were like, some guy pirated it and then he was like giving it to everyone else for free in the thing, and I was like, this is feels so crazy. And also, again, it's only like $5 for like 75 skins. Like each of them, the guy who made them, I'm sure probably spent like 2 weeks just making them, and then I spent like a week just painting them and doing like the photos to market them. And yeah, it was like not a
They
week of
did
work
look
time.
really cool.
And yeah, I think they did look really cool. And like I definitely would have made way more had people not been like so against it. And I think people still do buy them and
You
like
were
them. And
really sad.
yeah, it just was so insane to me that people were so mad. And it's like you can go on Patreon and you can see that the guy that makes Delta makes like $16,000 US per month. Like he doesn't have to put his app out for money because he is like making more and more money every week now because the app is going so popular. And also he's technically making money on selling in the EU, although I think that got dropped. And I guess we should maybe circle back to that point, which is that the whole reason this happened is in the EU, they forced Apple to do a bunch of different things this year leading into next. And one of them was that they had to allow third-party app stores. And so one of the only things that isn't really allowed on the regular app store is emulators. And so Apple, I think, as far as I can tell, looked at themselves and said, like, okay, do we want to have third-party app stores with popular apps that will then draw people into these third-party app stores? Or do we just want to let those popular apps be on our app store and keep people away from third-party app stores? And I think that's what they did. And then emulators came, and I'm very happy. But But yeah, that's my kind of final thing. I guess I'm just gonna do my honorable mentions, and then maybe each of you guys can fly through yours, and we should probably wrap this up because we've been chatting a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good.
John's like, we should
Uh,
rewrite a few things. But yeah, so my
no.
other honorable mentions, similar to the nostalgic kick, Wii's. I wrote a story recently about just like I've been homebrewing Wii's, putting tons of games on them that I used to play, and just going back to memory lane with that. I remember being a kid and being like so annoyed with the motion controls on the Wii, and then like going back as an adult with nostalgia. It's like, oh, this is so fun. And there were so many games like Trauma Center or like point and shoot games or other things where it just is so much more like arcadey and fun. I mean, Wii Sports, Wii Play, all those kinds of things. Really been having a lot of fun with that. A lot of my friends too. I mean, we're all of that age of like Wii's were, I think we were like 14, 15, 13-ish. So that's been really fun. I also really, really like the titanium Apple Watch. I think this, it's expensive, but I really love the look of it. I think it looks um, just a tad bit more like stylish than the other ones, and I like the glossiness. I think the simple fact that the titanium one has a sapphire crystal display, which means that it shouldn't scratch or crack. Huge, maybe worth the extra price because I do think Apple Watches last people like 7, 8, maybe even 9 years. I've seen people with Series 2s that are still cooking. So because of the low processing that it needs, the Apple Watch will last a long time. I think maybe it's worth investing in. I'm gonna write a story about that, but I have been really loving this one. I get like compliments on it more than I ever did off any other Apple Watch. It's interesting. And then the third one, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is just projectors. I finally got a couple of projectors this year. I set up a home theater in my house. I just reviewed a Sonos Arc surround system, which was awesome. And it's been really awesome. Alex and I have been going down a rabbit hole of trying to perfect how to make homemade popcorn. Get the coconut oil, get the special seeds, try the air pop, try the other thing. We've been trying all that kind of stuff. Oh, and there's also this like carton of like special salt you can buy on Amazon that apparently is what they use in the theater. And
Yeah,
yeah,
the Flavasol, right?
yes, what it is, yeah, flavor
Yes,
call,
I've
maybe?
also
Yeah.
gone. Yeah, I've gone down that same rabbit hole, and I've gotten close. I still need to figure out the best popping method. So I've
Yeah,
been doing microwave, and it's been okay, but it's not quite the same.
we got this thing that Alex used to have when she was a kid. We got it from her parents' house like a year or two ago, and it's like a hot sheet with like a bowl on top and then like a thing that spins at the bottom so they don't stick. And when you cook in that with like the coconut oil and the flavacol, it tastes good, but oh my God, it smells so good. When the like coconut oil is like cooking the popcorn in the kitchen, it is
Mhm.
insanely good smell. But yeah, we've just been having a lot of fun. I guess, tied into that, I've been building up my Plex server. So lots of movies. Our home theater system has been really fun, like investment this year, and I've been really enjoying it. And those are my honorable mentions. Who wants to go next?
Going backwards order, John.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that. My honorable mentions are I have two, not three, but that's okay. So my first one is the Boox Go 6 e-reader, which has really gotten me back into e-readers this year. Um, there's not anything super special about it. It kind of looks like your average Kobo or Kindle. But it was really cool trying out one that runs Android because it really kind of opens up what you can do with it in terms of like putting stuff on it. I know a lot of people like to use their Boox e-readers for like loading up work PDF documents and stuff so they can read them with like less eye strain and whatever. And I know Boox kind of had a big year with their Palma e-reader phone that was like blowing up in a bunch of different circles. I haven't tried that one out myself, but yeah, I've just been using the Go 6 e-reader and it's been fantastic. I got it set up, hooked up with my local library so I can borrow ebooks and read them all on there without having to go to the library or mess around with physical books. It's great when I have to go on the train to work. I can sit and read. I've got this one light little device that's super easy to just throw in a bag or in a pocket and take with me. So big fan of that. And it's great. And part of the reason for me that I went like super hard into the library side of it is I just always felt weird about buying digital books because I'm like, the cost isn't super different. I mean, you can get savings compared to buying physical books, but at the end of the day, like it's not a huge difference. And so I'm like, if I'm spending 15 to 20 bucks on a book, I'd rather have the physical book.
Yeah.
So being able to do the library thing and like get digital books, read them, and then it's like, okay, I really like this book or I really like this series. Let me go buy one and like support the author as well.
can do that on your phone, though.
What?
You can also just do that on any phone.
It's not the same on
Yeah,
the
the
phone.
e-reader is a
The
nice-
screen is harsher on the eyes.
And
Whatever.
I get where you're going with like
I
having that
disagree
one
here.
nice device. And the other thing I will say too, off the tail end of that, with the library, I don't know what it is with the library or you, but whenever I was doing that, I really liked the curation at my library. I felt like it was a good way to go in and discover new books. Like I felt like their sort of quote unquote store felt more curated than the actual like Kobo or Kindle stores, and I felt like that was a really great way to find new books, which was really surprising when I was down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. So if you're like looking to get more into reading, this is a good way to do it. And then my other one is really surprisingly the new Call of Duty. And when I was a teenager, like most teenagers, Brad's giving the thumbs down. No, when I was a teenager, I used to play Call of Duty a lot, as you know, most teenage boys did. And
Not me.
my thing was always like the zombies mode and whatever, right? Like that was all super fun for me.
I think you and I are the
but I
age
really-
of like the first Black Ops as well. Like that one I think came
Yeah.
out when we were like 14, and that's like the prime Call of Duty age, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I played a lot of World at War at friends' houses. And then when Black Ops 1 came out, it was like shortly after I had gotten the Xbox 360. And so I got that, and that was like all I played for years. So, you know, I haven't played Call of Duty in a long time. I really fell off that game series. You know, I got into Battlefield for a bit and my taste changed and shifted. So I haven't played Call of Duty in years, other than occasionally like loading up Call of Duty World at War to play a round of zombies or something. And so when Black Ops 6 was announced to coming to Game Pass, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll check it out, because I'm not going to buy a new Call of Duty game, right? I'm just
Same.
never going to spend that money on Call of Duty. But if I'm not spending any money other than the Game Pass subscription, then why not? I'll check it out. So, and plus that meant that I could get it on PC because I have the Game Pass Ultimate, and I just can't do first-person shooters on controller anymore. It just doesn't translate. I have to do keyboard and mouse. So yeah, I put it on my PC, and even though my PC is kind of old, it's been running Call of Duty great, and I've been having a ton of fun doing it in the multiplayer, like so much fun. So yeah, I just wanted to give that a little shout out because it's been a good time and a little bit of a nostalgia factor because, you know, Black Ops 1, but it's also like a very different game at the same time. So yeah, it's been fun.
I've been playing it too, similar to you, because of Game Pass. Maybe we should all, I think we all agreed to this. I think we all have Game Pass, but maybe we should throw Game Pass in as just an honorable mention as well. I think that's been a really sleeper hit this year for a lot of us with one game or the other.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's it. That's it for me for honorable mentions. So I think, Brad, you're up next. If we're doing reverse order.
Yeah, on my screen it would be Dean, but yeah, that's fine. I'll go. I'll do 3 then as well quickly since Bennett did. I'll shout out one more game, 1,000 Times Resist. It's something that I put forward for every category pretty much of the Game Awards. It was made by a studio in Vancouver called Sunset Visitor. Their first time making a game, they pivoted during COVID from the performing arts sector, which was really cool. And I just think it's everything that's great about games. It is the best story I've seen in a game this year. It's about this. It's kind of like Nier Automata. It's kind of about clones in a post-apocalyptic setting, but it kind of mixes that sort of existential dread of Nier with the sort of stylized visuals of like Wong Kar-wai's films, like In the Mood for Love, and the sort of like very in-depth intergenerational trauma stories that you've seen in a bunch of like immigrant movies. And it's really heartfelt. It's really moving. It is profound. It's unlike any game I've ever played. And it's the fact that it came from Canada makes it even cooler. So I want to give a shout out to them. And then I'm a big movie guy. No, it's a narrative adventure game.
Narrative adventure game. Okay, cool. It just
because I love movies, I want to shout out a couple for those. I've watched almost 200 movies this year, which is a record for me. So I'm actually, despite that, I'm having trouble picking my favorite yet, unlike previous years, which is kind of interesting. But one that really resonated with me this year is Dee Dee. It's a coming of age comedy drama from Sean Wang, and it really resonated with me because it's literally the filmmaker. It's semi autobiographical based on his life. He's 30 years old, and it's set. It's basically a younger version of him when he's 13 in 2008, which is literally the age that I was in 2008, in that early internet culture era. So like kind of pre Facebook, sort of MySpace, that sort of stuff, and it's just kind of him kind of struggling with growing up and kind of the internalized kind of self-hatred because of his immigrant family, and then also just kind of, being awkward with girls. And it's very relatable and very earnest and sincere, and I really thought it was a really good film that really resonated with me. And I think the other movie, I'll shout out, I mean, there's been so many good movies this year. Perfect Days is from Wim Wenders, who did Paris, Texas. It's a Japanese film, and it's basically about this man who's a public toilet cleaner in Tokyo, and it kind of follows him on the sort of mundanities of that, which on paper sounds boring, but it's sort of him, he kind of has a literally shitty job, but he's kind of learning to sort of appreciate the sort of beauty in everyday life as he goes about it. And while he does that, he kind of reconnects with his niece. And it's just a really touching, sort of lovely movie and kind of ode to life in general, which, stop and smell the roses sort of thing, which is, I think, something we can all appreciate and do. So those are my three.
Cool. Very cool. All right,
Okay.
Dean, what do you got?
So I feel like as the phone editor, devices editor, and guy who reviews a lot of phones, I should pick a phone. So I'm going to pick the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I love foldables. I think they're very cool. I've always loved the Galaxy Z Fold series, but I've had an issue with it. Their front screen's always a little too tall. And I don't really ever want to use it. I just want to open up the phone and just use it that way. But the 9 Pro Fold, Google, what they did was they basically just took the Pixel 9 Pro, the base 9 Pro, and just slapped it on in the front of a phone, on the front to make it so that like if you don't have it open, you're basically just using the 9 Pro, and if you have it open, you have a little tablet. I love it. It's so fun. I mean, now Samsung has something kind of similar, just not available in Canada. But I like that foldables are headed in this direction where you can use, you don't have to just use the, pro, like the openedness of
The
the
inside
phone.
screen, you can use the
The
front.
inside
Yeah.
screen of the phone, yeah, to do everything. You can use both the screens equally as you want, or just use the inside screen if you're just watching something or playing a game, which is kind of like how I use it, or how I think foldables should be used. So I have that. I love it. I also have Prince of Persia: Lost Crown. It's such a fun game. I didn't even finish it. I've definitely gotten through a lot of it though. But it kind of really opened my eyes to Metrovanias. I didn't like. I've tried Metrovanias before. I tried Hollow Knight before, and um, others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But they never really clicked with me until I started playing Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and then I've gone back now to play other like Metrovanias like Hollow Knight and gotten way further. Probably not done that either, because I just can't sit down and finish anything in life. But yeah, I've really been enjoying that game as well, and just Metrovanias on a whole now because of that game. And it just was a cool game. It looked cool. It was had anime vibes as well, which I don't love because I'm not a weeb. And last but not least, I really like the show Shrinking. It's on
Oh, the
Apple
Apple
TV
TV.
Plus. Yeah, it's starring slapping the bass guy.
Jason Segel, Harrison Ford.
Places to Go and Harrison Ford. Both great in the show. Usually, I only tend to gravitate towards shows with like an LGBT character in the main cast, and it does have Michael Urie. He's not super in the main cast. The first season I think came out last year, but now there's a second season too, and I just discovered the show in like September or August, so then I got to watch all of season one. I'm on season two. There's like 10 episodes in already as well, and I'm just really vibing with that show. It's really has like really heartfelt moments where you want to cry, but at the same time, I'm just laughing all the time because there's so many jokes and so many relatable moments.
I love watching just let Harrison Ford play off type, honestly, more than anything else. I just like
I
watching him
think this
play
is
a
one of
grumpy
his
old
like
man.
my
Yeah.
favorite roles
Yeah.
for him. He's just so good in this role. There's this wise mentor character who's also really funny and just very not deadpan, but very like upfront with just whatever he's thinking, and it just is such a good role for him. And it's seeing Jason Segel as like a dad character who is trying to raise this
Teenage
what,
daughter.
16-year-old teenager by himself after his wife passed away is so like I think that's also a really good role for him too, because he has this little, he's really funny, but then at the same time he has to be like, oh yeah, I'm a dad.
He
Yeah, I don't know,
plays
I
like
just love
being
this.
overwhelmed really good.
Yeah,
He
he
plays it in a
does, he
funny
does.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just such a good show. So I think those are my three honorable mentions. I had something else too, but that's enough.
Yeah, we should probably call it here. It's maybe the longest SyrupCast ever, but yeah, I hope you
Really?
guys are happy that I don't know, we're
How
almost
long
at
has this
two
been? Oh
hours.
my
We're at
gosh.
1 hour 54
Whoa!
minutes right now. Yeah.
Okay, stop talking. Let's go.
Gotta
Yeah,
we gotta start it off with a bang.
I think so. I think like I wouldn't expect them all to be this long in the future, but I think yeah, this was our first one back. We just wanted to come and we just wanted to chat with each other. We wanted to like open the audience back up and see where we stand. And if you guys have any questions for us, feel free to send them to us over on any of our social medias. Threads, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
We're on Blue Sky
We're
now.
on Blue Sky now. We're MobileSyrup at all of them. MobileSyrup at all of them. You can go to the contact us page on our website. You can email each of us directly. Anything you want to ask, or have any questions about where we've been and where we're going. We're open books pretty much. And yeah, I think you can expect the next episode in around 2 weeks after the Game Awards. There might be a little bit more of a break just over the holidays, but then I think we'll probably do the next one after CES to kind of recap that show. And then we're going to try to get on like a 2 week cadence or as much as we can after that. But I think I'm happy to be back. I think I speak for all of us. And do you guys have anything else you want to share? Maybe your social handles. We used to do that.
Yeah, we can do social handles. I pretty much the only thing I use now is Blue Sky. I'm still on Twitter if you want to follow me there, but I don't post anything there. And I'm on Threads, but I don't really post anything there because the vibes are off. Sour vibes.
Love
So
the
find me on
vibes.
Blue Sky at johnlamont.bsky.social or whatever it is. Just go on Blue Sky, sign up, search for John Lamont. You'll find
Fair
me.
enough. Maybe I should sign up. I've still been holding off. But you're right. The Threads
What?
vibes have been. I feel like it's just
What
so
is wrong
much
with
like
Red
engagement
Vibes?
bait lately, and they were supposed to be trying to fix it. It's been awful. But yeah, you can find
So
me anywhere at the Brad Fad. I'm still active on most of the social medias, but I do need to start Blue Skies. You won't find me there yet, but maybe in a week.
I'm going to sell you on Blue Sky with one feature, Brad.
Okay.
And that is
Is it
you
a tweet
can
deck
go into the
replacement?
moderation settings and toggle off engagement posts. And you'll just never see
Wow.
them. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
So-
in. Okay, maybe I'll be on Blue Sky later today. All right, Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I'm on everything. I don't use Threads either. I don't like that platform. I'm using Twitter still, not as much. I was already kind of weaning off of it anyways. Blue Sky a lot as well. I'm Brad Shankar on all of those. BradShankar.
I think I'm at the Daily Dean on most things. I don't actually know. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on any of them. Maybe, maybe not. And yeah, that's me.
All right.
But most importantly, you can find all of us on the website, mobilesyrup.com.
Yep. And all the socials for that, obviously at MobileSyrup. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. I hope you're happy that we're back. We're happy to be back. And I think next year for MobileSyrup is going to be a big year of growth, onwards and upwards. And we're all looking forward to see where we can go. And we hope you follow along with us. All right. Peace.